Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 472, our top Earth-based science fiction games.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
We are the hosts of Meeple Nation. I'm Nathan Howard.
I'm Dave Holliday.
I'm Mogan Howard.
I'm Andy Holliday.
And I'm Douglas Stewart.
Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by GameToppersLLC.com. Go to their website, order yourself a topper today. Put that topper on that old rickety card table that you have in the basement and go from game night to game night. It's a great upgrade for every game that you will play on any table that you already have. It's affordable. It's super high quality. It is amazing. Plus, it's really, really cool. So go check them out. GameToppersLLC.com. Get you a topper, get you a mat, get you a cup holder, and you will be set until you want another mat and some more cup holders and some leaves. But go check them out. GameToppersLLC.com. And I think I said check them out way too many times.
It's okay, because people should go and check them out.
They should.
You've probably been a member of
Yes, Michel.
a member of Meeple Nation for quite some time now. Why not make it official by going over to meeplenation.com, where there is nothing to join.
So how is it official?
But it's sort of like the bar from Cheers, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody knows your name.
Come and join us without giving any personal information and spend some time getting to know us better by reading our blogs or by checking out all the pictures that we post from different events or just from our game night. While you're there, see what you've missed by looking through our catalog of past episodes. There are 471 of them.
Soon to be 472.
In fact, by the time you're listening to this
that's true.
episode, there will be 472 of them.
Math is fun.
Except having listened to this episode, there are now only 471 past episodes possibly unlistened to, which is where I was going with the 471.
Gotcha. But then we'd have to factor in bonus episodes, and it just, the math just gets...
I know.
all kinds
It's
of crazy.
crazy. However,
That's Earth-based science right there.
it is still worth your time. Come check us out, meeplenation.com. Send us any questions, concerns, feedback that you have at meeplenation@gmail.com. Give us a like where you can find us on any of those.
Hello.
Yep. The other thing that you can do there is you can click on the link to our Patreon account and become a patron if you're a fan. We love and thank very much our patrons, all of you who have already joined us on there, and look forward to any others that would see fit to do the same. All of that you can find when you join us at meeplenation.com.
How does the song keep going? And they're all so glad you came. It really is. It's like the bar from Cheers. Come on over to meeplenation.com. It's a great place to hang out.
Norm. That's the only thing I remember about Cheers.
Yeah.
And Cliff, who was on all of the...
Cliff.
He was on all of the
Toy Stories.
Toy Story and the Pixar cartoons.
Sam and Diane. I'm the young guy. I shouldn't be the one making these references.
Yeah, Cheers annoyed me.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, this isn't a Cheers episode, so I guess we'll just drop it there. But
It is not an episode because this week we are talking about our top sci-fi games. So it's far more exciting than Cheers because we're talking about sci-fi. Nathan's favorite theme.
I'm in.
It is my favorite theme.
But only our Earth-based sci-fi games.
That is also true.
So top Earth-based sci-fi games. Top 5 sci-fi games. Dave, what is your number 5 on your top 5 sci-fi games?
My number 5 is a game I have played once. I mentioned actually last week that I had played this just once. just recently, about 2 years ago, and it's called Skithy or Scythe. Played this with some friends up in Washington. And I'd been looking forward to this game for a long time because just looking at the components, looking at the giant box and all this stuff, right, it just looked really, really cool. It has a beautiful table presence, I should say. I was actually very fearful, though, because I know that there was an area control component, and I don't generally love the area control, but it did not ruin it by any means. The area control can be almost entirely avoided. Playing through this game was very cool, and I am excited to play it again.
Yeah, we talked about playing it again last week, and we still haven't gotten it to the table yet. Doug kind of strong-armed us and said we're going to get it done, so hopefully that is not a fibbery.
It's going to happen.
Especially the new, or I don't know if it's new, but the campaign/legacy type thing that it has, right?
I didn't follow that at all.
I didn't follow that at all.
Then just edit it out.
So my number 5 is Charterstone. And Charterstone is a game that I have gone through 1.5 times. I went through it once with Brent and my oldest daughter, Ashley, and she very much loved this game. In fact, she wanted to get that to the table with both my wife and my youngest daughter so that they could share in her love and appreciation. The unfortunate thing is she played as an angsty teenager, played with another angsty teenager, and the proverbial stuff hit the fan. That game went over like a flat balloon, which is very unfortunate because the game is a great game. I think she would still like to get that to the table again. I still have my recharge pack for that. I would very much like to get that to the table again, and I think maybe that's something that with the three of us, her, my wife, and myself, we could get that to the table again and enjoy that experience. So maybe that's something, as I'm talking about it right now, the wheels are cranking. That would explain that burning odor you guys are smelling. So I think that's something that I'll bust out. I love Charterstone because of it's one of those legacy games, and it's very simple, easy. I hate when I say simple and easy. The rules are fairly simple and
Easy?
The rules are simple and easy. I just want to go to it. The rules are simpy.
Yes, I like it.
The legend grows. I love it.
We might need to start. We might need to start using Simpy.
Simpy. The game mechanics are easy. The games are fairly short, and the expansion that it provides all go together well. Charterstone is one that I need to get to the table with both my daughter and my wife.
Charterstone is the first legacy game that I played, and it is what made me fall in love with legacy style games. I consider it more of a pure legacy style games because there's some that kind of like dabble in it, but don't quite, I don't know, feel fully legacy. But it just has so many good things about it. It's a great worker placement. It really has engine building, sort of. I don't know. I think a lot of people probably wouldn't really think of it much of an engine builder, but because the engine building can be kind of complex, but when you can wrap your head around it and make some really cool combos happen, then it gets to be really amazing. But there's cool exploration and great discovery, just a lot of good stuff. And the components are great in it too. Like we don't even have to have Andy pull out his special coins for this game. That one also is my number 2. So now I'm just mentioning it at number 2. So
What about you, Doug? What's your number 5?
My number 5, I kind of talked about it in last week's episode where we were talking about the Earth-based sci-fi games generally, but it's actually Waste Nights. This is one I've really had a great time playing with my son, Brigham. We've sat down and played this a couple of times. Really, really fun take on the post-apocalyptic theme. Takes place in Australia. This is the 2nd edition that I'm talking about. And this isn't much of a spoiler because it lets you know this pretty quickly. In fact, I think it's actually in the opening story crawl of the rulebook, is that there are these corporations, one in particular, and it is sort of their pursuit of scientific discovery and advancement and technology is what leads to the post-apocalyptic environment that you're kind of playing in. So it really leans into that sci-fi side of the post-apocalyptic theme, blends those two things really quite well. Does a great job at sort of ramping up in its storytelling. It starts players off easy, But you basically are playing these heroes. You're going to go around solving all the problems of the Australian outback, the Australian wasteland, basically. Does this in a really, really fun way. You get to collect a lot of gear. You get to explore a lot of really fun narrative choices. This is kind of a choose your own adventure. So it does a great job at giving you some choices. And then those choices have legitimate meaning. I mean, these stories branch and branch and branch. The way that you decide to tackle problems and how you navigate that sort of narrative booklet, right? Based on the choices that you make, you really feel like you're kind of telling your own story by the time it all wraps up. I think Waste Nights is kind of an underrated game. I don't know that it's on a lot of people's lists, but it really deserves to be. I think it's a fantastic game.
That is one I definitely want to play. When you described that last week, I thought it sounded amazing. So one I would love to experience. My number 5 is one that is more, it hit my number 5 more for just my experiences with the game. And that is Gizmos. You're in a science fair, you're coming up with these different machines and you're trying to basically win. Kind of a sci-fi theme. Honestly, it doesn't really need the theme for the game to work, but it's a fun theme anyway. One that my kids have grown to absolutely love. My daughter Amara in particular, always on the tip of her tongue if there's like, hey, let's play a game, it's Gizmos. The funnest experiences that I had with this game was, and I wasn't even involved in playing it, was when Amara informed Nathan that she was going to kick his butt at Gizmos. And
she wanted to play a game that she could whoop me in.
Yep, she was going to whoop him, and it didn't happen. But it was one that she's so familiar with, right? That it was, she has won it in the past, and she was going to show him, and it didn't happen. And there was a lot of smack talk going on, so it was kind of fun to watch. But it's one that our family has grown to love, and it amazes me how often this game hits our table, and it plays quickly. In fact, at SaltCon, Amara really wanted to play it, and I was playing Rolling Heights, and I decided, well, I'll just play them both at the same time. Bad idea. I got my butt kicked at both games. Just for the history that I have with Gizmos, definitely hit my top 5, or hit my number 5 on my top 5.
Yeah, and Gizmos has a fantastic BGA implementation, which is how we've kind of started playing it. I have the box sitting on my shelf. Fantastic game for all the reasons you mentioned, but also BGA makes it more accessible for us to play more often, and I love that about it too.
And you don't have to chase the marbles when they pop out of the chute.
That's true.
That is very, very true. Although they've done a good job with the second edition, I will say it's much better. If you have that first edition of Gizmos, that was far more problematic.
Dave, what was your number 4?
Number 4 for me was Cloud Age. We mentioned this one a little bit last week. It's kind of a post-apocalypse.
It's hard to
Good
say.
grief, what is my issue?
It's Monday.
It is a little bit of a post-apocalyptic game. I've only played it once. This was down at Hug and MeepleCon South. It was Julie, Fritchett, and I want to say Claudine, but it might have been Monique. I don't remember. One of the other Hug ladies played it with us, but it was the 4 of us. It's a very both the gameplay and the idea are unique. Solid gameplay, just a fun all around game. It was new, so that always hits for me.
So my number 4 is a hidden role game. This Earth-based sci-fi game is visited by aliens. So it's Earth-based / sci-fi, but it all happens here on planet Earth. And that is The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31. I thoroughly enjoy hidden role games. One of my favorite game mechanics out there. This incorporates kind of a little bit of that horror theme in there, as well as building on that hidden role and being able to, you really need to work with each other, but yet you need to try to figure out who has been infected and make sure that infected person doesn't make it to the helicopter and return back to civilization, and that alien life form is stuck in the Arctic Circle. Great game, tons of fun. Very much one that well worth my number 4 spot in my sci-fi, my Earth-based science fiction games.
I only got to play this one once. You taught it to us a while back. And my highlight playing this was I made it onto the ship as the infected and won the game. It was
That is so awesome.
glorious. I loved it. I would play this one again sometime. I really liked it.
We learned that you have to play it at an odd number.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not a huge fan of hidden role games, but I did really enjoy our plays after our first play of Outpost. What is it? The Thing, Infection at Outpost
31.
The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31. That first play was a little rough just because that's when we realized that we needed an odd number of players. Given the fact that that's not my favorite mechanic, I thought it was so well implemented in this one.
And I guess we should say that it requires an odd number because that allows for the team assignment cards, those team objective cards, to give you a little bit more variety instead of having to require everybody on some of those larger ones. There wasn't a way to eliminate not taking somebody. And so that's the only reason that we say an odd number.
Yeah, it's a good point, but really, really fun game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. My number 4, and apparently we are getting a lot of practice using and saying the word post-apocalyptic. It may not even be the last time it gets said on this podcast, but my number 4 is another post-apocalyptic themed game. This is 51st State. So this is a game by Portal Games, Ignacy Trzewiczek, big name in gaming, does a podcast. I think he's kind of a fun personality, and he has a lot of fun with this game. In fact, one of the standout things about this game is actually the rule book. The rule book is really snarky and kind of makes fun of the player who's reading it, kind of makes fun of its own theme and subject material and all that. And so I think that it's done very tongue-in-cheek. It's a lot of fun. Each player is taking on an empire, trying to kind of rise from the ashes of the wastes. As you do so, you are building structures and advancing your technology. And what it really kind of boils down to is a lot of resource management. You get to take actions until you have to pass. So what you're really trying to do is build combos or get places out that allow you to take more actions or collect more resources so that you can pay for more things. And it really synergizes in a very, very fun way. It's a brilliant design. It's got great art on the cards. They also have a lot of expansions that sort of plug and play into this game that add just a little thing here or there. In fact, one of my favorite expansions is actually the Moloch expansion. It gives you sort of this robot army that's attacking everybody, and everybody has to contribute to taking on the robots, or they're going to take some penalties as they're trying to build out their empire. It does a great job of embracing the science fiction. Again, that advancement in technology and all of that, and the mechanisms of it work fantastic.
Played it at BGG Con last year, and that was when my health was less than happy. And so I spent a lot of the time back at the hotel room contemplating my existence. And and so I missed out on that opportunity. So I very much want to give this game a try.
Yeah, I played it with Logan and Max, and I think I converted both of them. They really enjoyed it as well.
Well, my number 4 is a game I actually do not own. I know, Nathan, you own this, and I'm not sure about Doug, and that's Welcome to the Moon. Doug introduced me to the Welcome to roll and writes, but Welcome to the Moon I liked even more. And I think that's because, so I've played it a couple times, and there are different modules, I guess, in the game. So the game plays a little differently. I like roll and writes. I didn't really like the idea when they first came out. I'm like, well, that sounds kind of dumb. They've really grown on me. Certain ones are just kind of basically the same game over and over. You're Trails of Tucana, right? It's a great game, but for the most part, you're doing the same thing. What I liked about Welcome to the Moon is that it changes things up a little bit and makes the experience a little bit different, which I love. It gives me that taste of a fun roll and write, but it gets to where it's not so monotonous. You can get it to the table multiple times fairly quickly without it getting stale and old. And just the gameplay's great.
I really like the Welcome to the Moon because it changes up that Welcome to. With all the versions of Welcome to, it's still just the same thing, going through the neighborhood, assigning house numbers. Welcome to the Moon the feel is different. It does shake it up a little bit, kicks it up a notch, and I totally agree. Welcome to the Moon is superior to the Welcome to series. In the Welcome to series, it is superior to the Welcome to games. Superior.
Better.
Would you say it was superior?
Superior.
Number 3, 2 games, because I don't really know the difference between the two. I've played them both just a little bit. Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island, they're both fantastic. I loved playing both. We talked a little bit about them last week, And I think, Andy, you mentioned how much you love dinosaur games. I never realized that I had a thing for dinosaur games until I played these. And I was like, I guess I love dinosaur games because these are great, great, great games. Nate, you talked about how much Jim loved having his people get eaten. Like that was the whole
His
thing.
patrons, yeah.
Yeah, that was the whole thing that he was excited about, was having the guests at his park get eaten. Right from the start, you explained the rules, and he's like, I'm just going to see how many people I can get eaten.
It makes us question a lot of what James does.
For sure. These games are both great, great games. You build out a park. You're looking for different buildings that will give you different abilities, that will bring different levels of attraction to your park. Overall, I think they're both very fun.
I find it interesting because building a dinosaur park, we have quite a few games out that have this basic theme. And it seems like most of them came out really close to each other. It's been kind of fun to see the differences between Dinosaur World, Dinosaur Island, Dinogenics, how these different game companies implemented basically the same theme or the same idea. Honestly, they've all come out with pretty fun games.
Dinosaur Island and Dinosaur World are both Pandasaurus games. Dinosaur Island came out first, and then Dinosaur World. And I know you kind of said that you like them both and you had a good experience with both of them. I didn't have quite as good of experience with Dinosaur Island. I think Dinosaur Island got lost in its own mechanics a little bit. Also, the art style on it wasn't quite my thing. It was very bright and flashy, and I wasn't quite as into that. But I think with Dinosaur World, they really refined that and turned it into, they kind of embraced that idea of it being a real park builder. And I think that's why, for me, at least if I had to pick between those two, I would definitely go with Dinosaur World. I thought it was a little bit better. But yeah, like a lot of these dinosaur park building games kind of came out at a really kind of the same time, and they each have kind of a unique twist and do something a little different with them. So
Nathan, what's your number 3?
My number 3 game is a game all based on the kaiju, and that's King of Tokyo. King of Tokyo is a great dice chucking, battle it out game, all surrounding the city of Tokyo. You're bringing your kaiju in there, trying to take out the others, be the king of the hill. Be the king of Tokyo. Great game, very simple, very fast.
Yeah, and I really like the way it embraces sci-fi through the upgrade cards, right? Like a lot of those are the mega bombs, or there's kind of like technology or upgrades that are involved in those. Because the theme on this one might be a little bit lighter. The sci-fi theme, right, might be a little bit lighter with this one. Because who knows how King Kong fits into the sci-fi theme or whatever. Got Mechagodzilla and all these other big bad monsters, and you're upgrading them and purchasing cards and all that kind of stuff. So I really like this. This is a good choice, Nathan. I like King of Tokyo a lot.
When I was looking at this list, I looked at King of Tokyo and I thought, well, how is that one? That one's more fantasy than sci-fi. But now that you mentioned the cards and the upgrades and things like that, it fits for me now.
Yeah, this reminds me of a game I've had for quite some time called Monsters Menace America. And you have all the, kind of the same monsters that are going in and trampling on stuff, and each player controls a monster, and each player also controls a branch of the military. It would probably fit in that sci-fi theme too. In fact, that's one I had to teach you guys. It's pretty fun. King of Tokyo, I love it. I love the trying to figure out when to try to get into Tokyo, when to jump out. There's a lot of nuance with that, and I think it's great. It's a great game.
Doug, what do you have slotted at 3?
Well, my number 3 is a little game that's not so little, but is awesome, called The Reckoners. This is a game based on what I think is a very wonderful book series by Brandon Sanderson. What it really does is provides an incredibly fantastic cooperative experience for everybody at the table. In fact, one of the last times I played this, we had Richie at the table, and Richie he's not as into the cooperative games as much. And I remember when we got done with that, he was like, wow, that was a really good cooperative game. I think this can even win over people who don't like cooperatives. It's that good. I think The Reckoners is a fantastic game. And it has some really well integrated sci-fi elements. In the books, the Reckoners, they have to take on the epics, basically superheroes, right? And they have to do it by using advanced technology. That's, that's kind of the gist of how they have to fight. They have to use their wit and technology to take on bad versions of comic book characters. And you really get that same feel from the board game. You're acquiring all these technological upgrades. In fact, acquiring the upgrades and getting all those cards and stuff is really what you have to do in order to win the game, because that's what gives you all the synergies and combos and dice manipulation that you can use to take on the epics and then eventually take out Steelheart. Fantastic game, and I think it fits this theme really, really well.
Yeah, I was excited how well the game matched the theme of the book series. I thought the books were great. Get that same feel from the game where you have to find the weakness of the epics and use all that technology you can't really take out one of the epics until you've done that research and you have that information. Thought that was played out very well in the game.
Well, my number 3, I talked a little bit about last week, and that is BattleTech. You design your own mechs. You have a stat sheet. You have the rules for designing mech. You select your engine, your tonnage, your armor, your weaponry. You have to manage your heat, so you have to put heat sinks in your mech. Once you get it designed, you get it to the table, and you battle each other. The maps typically are going to have elevation changes. You have trees. You have water. You just go all out, try to win. Many times when we've played this, we've played in teams. And so we'll say, okay, each team has 300 tons, and we all design mechs and work cooperatively to try to tactically take down the other side. As far as tabletop war games, it's definitely one of my favorites. And it's one of the more easily accessible tabletop war games because there aren't just a slug of rules. It's actually fairly straightforward on how combat works. And if you don't like doing the mech design, they have pre-designed mechs that you can just print sheets off and play and have it hit the table without any prep work, as long as you learn the basic rules. We've had a ton of fun with BattleTech over the years. I mean, we played this back when the first time I played BattleTech, I was probably 13 years old. It's been a long time, right? It's an old game. It still just plays so well and is still really fun to play.
When we decided we were talking about our top 5 Earth-based sci-fi games, I was looking over the list, and there were several games that I didn't really think fit super well. At least when I'm thinking, like, I want something sci-fi, this does not scratch the itch, right? Like, so there's games like It's a Wonderful World. Love that game. Just doesn't quite give me that feel, right? Tapestry is another one. Charterstone, Nathan already had talked about that being his 5th choice. This was my 2nd choice. It probably would have been number 1 had it really fit better. It does, just maybe not quite as well as number 1. As I said before, it is a fantastic game. One of my favorite overall games. It just really, really is such a good game. Everybody that I played it with loved it up until some point. And then some of them decided they didn't love it so much anymore, but game that we've just had a ton of fun with. I played through it twice. I enjoyed this game so much the first time going through it that I had to go buy it myself, which is a big darn deal.
One thing I think that Charterstone did really well was just the way the board changes constantly throughout the game, right? And not only that, you have the islands that you can cover up spaces. So as the game progresses, you can kind of customize it based on what strategy you would kind of want to go for. Very nicely implemented.
I actually would really love to go through and play one of our copies again, right? With how it has ended up and just see how we feel about it as a general game.
My number 2 is Gizmos, and we've already talked about that.
And we've already talked about it. Doug, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is adjacent to what we've already been talking about, and that is Dinogenics. I know I've mentioned this before, I think talking in the past, but like I was a 10-year-old kid when Jurassic Park hit movie theaters, and it just blew my mind. I was dinosaur obsessed for such a long time. And I remember sort of the almost just the magic of this idea that we could have a dinosaur park, you know, and even as an adult, this idea that we can use genetics, that we can extract DNA from amber, that we can use our science and technology to bring dinosaurs back and build a technologically advanced park to put them in and turn it into a theme park and go on rides and enjoy this experience. That still just makes me grin, right? It puts a grin on my face, just ear to ear. I love that idea. I love that theme. To me, Dinogenics just does the best job at letting me build a dinosaur park. And I'll be the very, very first to tell you that Dinogenics is not perfect. I don't think that it has the world's best art for a board game. I don't think that it really revolutionizes the worker placement mechanism. I think that it's pretty straightforward, but it is just solid. solid worker placement. It's got amazing components. You got those recessed cardboard pieces, wooden dinosaurs, fence pieces, the cards, tiles, all of it's really, really good production. The actual process of building your park is just incredibly satisfying. Over in one corner, you've got a little raptor pen, and then you've got your aquatic arena, and the brontosaurus is sort of wandering off in the corner, and you're attracting your visitors in, and you're building rides and features and all these things. And it just comes together in such a satisfying and fun way. I love Dinogenics. This is just a great game.
This is one I didn't get a chance to play, and I very much would like to try it.
Yeah, I am super excited to try this one as well.
Well, we have Hug a Meeple Con coming up, and I know that there are at least several of the Hug ladies that really like this game a lot. So I don't think we'll have any problem getting it to the table when Hug a Meeple Con rolls around.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit on my number 2. There are a couple of implementations of board game implementations and actual video game implementations of this. Most of them haven't been very good. But the role-playing game, which is why it hit my number 2, I love the theme, and that is Shadowrun. Earlier role-playing games that I got into, and the world is just so rich. Oh my goodness. So we would play in Seattle, the Seattle setting where you're building your character. I believe my first character was a street samurai. I had all sorts of cyberware, and it was just the coolest theme. I loved it. And I wish that they would implement a really great board game for this. In fact, it's me talking. So I would love a dungeon crawl with a Shadowrun theme. I think that would be really cool. I tried to implement it several video games, and none of them have been very good, with the exception of the one that came out on I believe it was on the Super Nintendo. And it was actually quite done quite well. The way magic works, the cyber technology, you're going up against the big corporations, and you have deckers that are trying to hack into the Matrix. And anyway, it's just a really cool world as far as role-playing games go. And the theme of a role-playing game, it's one of my favorites. I wish the systems were better for the RPGs because they're not the greatest. I like D20 systems more. But thematically, Shadowrun kind of fires on all cylinders for me. It is great.
Over the years, we've talked several times about coming up with our own implementation in a D20 system. Every time we talk about that, I get excited. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I agree. The theme of this one is it's awesome. Are we on to number 1 now?
It is time.
We are.
For number 1.
It is time for number 1. And I chose Underwater Cities. Underwater Cities is a fantastic game. Everything about this game, I love. It brought new mechanics, which I am always excited to explore those. And I love the theme, building these underwater cities. There's some engine building in it, a lot of great things that come together perfectly. And it fit our theme as well as any of the other games, and which is why it ended up in that number 1 slot.
Underwater Cities is great, rivaling to be in my top 5. I love Underwater Cities. Like you said, Dave, it introduced a lot of different mechanics. I love action selection works on the boards, the different colors. And if you want to get the bonus from the cards that you're playing to take that action, you have to take the corresponding color, but yet you don't have to. The balance of what you're trying to get done on your board, and as you're building your tunnels and building your cities and trying to get over to those metropolises that are up on the surface, resource management and all of it, right? It's great. It's so well done.
Yeah, I love this game. The expansion for it kicks it up a notch higher. Great game.
Here in the show notes, I created a little spot where I put honorable mentions right there. I've only had a chance to play this once, and I think if I had played it more, it would possibly have made one of my top 5 on this list. Hearing everybody have so much love for it, it kind of surprises me that it doesn't get to the table a little more often.
Doug, as soon as you talk, I want to cough.
You say the nicest things.
I get that tickle in my throat every time you start talking. Sorry.
Again, the nicest things.
Not hitting the table there's 3,000 other options that we have amongst the 5 of us. It's tough to get that table time.
It's true. Honestly, it is becoming a tale as old as time with us. Just all these games that need to hit the table and not enough time to get to them. So,
yep. My number 1 is yet another dinosaur game. Picked up Draftosaurus a while back with both of its expansions. I played it for the first time at BryceCon this January. It has been a huge success. It's been a great game to play with my wife. BGA has a great implementation of it as well. It doesn't include the expansions, which is a bummer, but the base game and the summer and the winter side of that game board are both available there. Creating dinosaurs, it's a very fast game. You roll dice and you have a selection of dinosaurs. You put it in one of your 7 enclosures. Whoever can get the most of the right dinosaurs in each of their
You can do it, man.
You got it.
the player that can get their the player that the
We're waiting.
maybe go get a coffee or something. The player that monopolizes on their enclosures the most and gains the highest amount of points, usually 7 to 8 points, depending on if they have the Tyrannosaurus Rex in there or not, wins the game. Very fun. Play it. You're done. Play it again. And that's why it's my number 1.
One of the things I did appreciate about Draftosaurus was some of the tension that kind of builds because you are rolling those dice. And as people's parks kind of fill up, you really need those dice to have certain results to get the best score possible. As you get down to those last few rolls, there's a lot of that like, oh, come on. There's kind of that nervous energy at the table where everybody's watching those dice. And then if you're the person who rolls the dice and they're not at all what works out for people are mad at you and kind of getting up and yelling and like, oh, it's not what I needed. But yeah, it creates a lot of that really fun tension with the dice rolls and seeing the results and building your park and putting everything in there. I like Draftosaurus. It didn't hit for me quite as much as it did for you, but I do think it's a solid game and my kids love it. It's one that sees a fair amount of table time.
The nice thing about those games is it's easier to give them lots of table time because they just play so quickly. Draftosaurus falls into that category of just a quick, hey, we've got 20 minutes. We're waiting for someone to show up. We're waiting for another game at the other table to finish up. Such a good game to get to the table and play through. It's fun. It's not one of those filler games that's like, all right, well, what are we going to do? Let's do this one. It's not the greatest, but it'll be a good filler. It's actually a fun game.
Well, my number 1 is a little game Dave likes to call Skithy that I like to call Scythe. This is a Stonemaier Games production. In my opinion, one of the best games out there, full stop. Is one that I have really come to appreciate as time has gone on. The more that I play Scythe, the more that I like it. And the more I have a desire to actually get it to the table. When we think about sci-fi, we usually think future. What I like about Scythe is that it goes back in time, back into that like 1920s Europa time period and asks, what would the future look like then? And so you still get these massive battle mechs and you get the flying warships, contraptions and machines of war and all this stuff. And it kind of comes through in the art of the cards and all that. All of it is with that sort of 1920s, almost kind of steampunk sort of twist. The theme for me it really blows me away. I love the cards. Just looking at everything on there, the player sheets. I love it when you turn over those events. The event, it doesn't even give you any dialogue. You just look at the picture on the card, then it gives you options. It might show a mech that's walking beside some farmer with some pigs. Well, do you pay 2 coins to buy the pigs from the farmer? Do you shoot the pigs and take the food? Do you trade the pigs for the mech? You know what I mean? Like it just gives you these options and it leaves you just kind of guessing at what that story is trying to tell. I mean, it does a good job telling it, but you can create your own narrative in kind of your mind's eye. So I really, really love the theme of this. I love how the science fiction has been done, the science fiction part of it, that technology. You just combine all of this with the fact that Scythe is an unbelievably fun game to play, and you have what is, in my opinion, a real masterpiece. It's awesome action selection, the way that you upgrade something from the top, and then it makes something cheaper on the bottom. I really like how that mechanism works. Area control without a lot of combat, the way you have to manage your popularity, just everything going on in this game, I think is brilliantly done.
Yeah, it's interesting. Stonemaier has a couple games in our top 5s.
And the more you talk about it, the more I am anxious for you to force us to get this to the table.
Again, tale as old as time, right? But yeah, no, we will get this one to the table. I have not played the Rise of Fenris expansion, and that is a legacy style expansion for Scythe. Nice. So that is definitely one we need to get to the table. It's another one that if we can just schedule it, we'll get through it and we'll play it.
I
Yeah.
am intrigued.
Me too. And I've never played it, so I definitely want to try it.
You said that much better than I did last week.
What part particularly?
The part about the legacy version.
Oh, wow.
I thought you just meant Scythe. And he's not wrong.
Definitely not.
All right, Andy, number 1.
My number 1, I did talk a little bit about last week as well, and that is Wasteland Express Delivery Service. Thoroughly loved this game. Take on the role of a delivery driver. There are several in the game, and they all have an asymmetrical power that you're going to start with, and their own rig. You know, sometimes your asymmetrical power is actually your rig itself. Like you have, you may go faster, right? Because you're driving the muscle car with a trailer to deliver your goods. Each of your rigs are going to have slots for storage or slots for weapons, or maybe even you add an extended cab to have additional allies. And if you don't have enough room, then get another trailer. Expand the slots that you have for upgrades, whether you need to add machine guns or rockets or just a plethora of things that you can do as you're trying to drive throughout the wasteland to deliver your goods and collect your scrap. Thematically, I think they nailed this game. I think the dialogue in it, or just the flavor text in it, is so good. So as you're going through the game, you're drawing mission cards, and there are public missions that are face up for everybody to complete, and then you have your own private missions. There are certain criteria. You have to complete so many of missions that allow you to place your pawn on the mission, and if you get 3 of these, you win the game. And those missions tend to be a little bit more difficult and time-consuming to fulfill, but there are a lot of other missions that are quick and might give you a leg up on the other players to get those larger missions completed. Overall, the gameplay is great. The theme's great. I love that there's asymmetrical starting powers, and the way the actions work is actually fairly unique as well. Moving them over along your board so you can move and still do an action. But if you just move, you actually gain momentum and get more movement the next time that you perform a move action. Allow you to get across the wasteland faster. Great game. I love the theme, and I think it's very well implemented as well in this. And as far as sci-fi, it's an easy number 1 for me.
I very much loved the theme of this game. The whole pickup and delivery from one side of the board to the others very much gives you that whole Mad Max feeling. I look forward to playing this game again.
I didn't get the Mad Max feeling from it, but I've never seen Mad Max.
Oh, that's why.
That would probably be what.
but I did get the feeling of one of my favorite video games from it.
Borderlands?
Borderlands.
Yeah, very much so. It definitely has a Borderlands feel.
Totally.
One thing I like is the main missions that come out can change the feel of the game. There's one that always is out, and then you have 2 other public missions that come out that will really change on the direction you're going and what you're trying to accomplish, and it gives it a different feel for sure.
So this is a game, Andy, that twice now, once at game night and once at a convention, I have been playing games on the table next to where this was being played. And I have to admit that my jealousy is starting to rear its ugly head a little bit, that you guys have gotten to play this one so much, and I haven't had a chance to play it yet. You throw out terms like Mad Max and Borderlands and post-apocalyptic, and the way you're describing this just sounds like a whole lot of fun. So we say this a lot, but this legitimately might be one that we need to get to the table really quick. In fact, I can see it on the table over there right now.
It is indeed.
So maybe we should just set it up. Maybe we should just call this podcast a wrap and set up Wasteland Express.
Until next time.
We'll see you climbing those charts to your favorite Earth-based science fiction game at the game table.
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/MeepleNation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of Werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_nation. Or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community. There was a Monday song, and I can't think of it now.
Monday, bloody Monday.
Almost. Almost.